Campbell Soup CEO admits the company is going broke. When a CEO quietly admits the company is running out of money, you know the collapse has already begun. Campbell didn't stumble into this crisis. It erupted after leaks, lawsuits, and a VP trashing their own soup. The financial truth just confirmed what the scandals already exposed. But the collapse did not begin with a spreadsheet. It began with a voice recording. A recording where Campbell's own vice president mocked the customers who buy their food and described the product his company sells as nothing more than slop for poor people. In one rant, a century of branding and trust evaporated. Suddenly, analysts, employees, and consumers were all staring at the same disturbing question. Is Campbell's collapsing because the business is failing, or because the moral core of the company has rotted beyond repair? Everything changed the moment that recording hit the surface. The leaked audio was over an hour long. It was not taken in a boardroom or during a stressful emergency. It was taken casually in a restaurant. A senior executive sat across from a lower-level employee and began tearing apart every layer of the company he was supposed to protect. He laughed about the customers who buy Campbell's products. He sneered at the workers who make them. He mocked entire departments. But the part that shocked audiences across the country was the contempt he had for the food itself. He did not say it tasted bad. He did not say the recipes needed improvement. He said he would not touch the product. He said he barely buys Campbell's food anymore. He then launched into one of the most bizarre tirades ever recorded from a corporate leader. He claimed the soups contained bioengineered meat. He compared it to chicken made by a 3D printer. He described the ingredients as something he would never feed himself. This was not a whistleblower accusing the company. This was the company accusing itself. And throughout the rant, he continued attacking the people who keep Campbell running. He insulted customers. He ridiculed employees. He used racist terms when describing his own colleagues. The tone was not frustration. It was disdain. Pure contempt dripping from the mouth of someone who sits at the upper levels of the company hierarchy. For investors and analysts who once believed Campbell's was a stable American food icon, the recording sent a chill. If senior leadership openly believes their product is barely edible, how much trust can the market place in the company's future? Consumers did not need an investigative report. They heard the truth from inside the building. But behind that recording was a second story. A smaller one at first glance. A story that reveals more about the internal collapse than any financial chart ever could. The man sitting across the table from that executive was Robert Garza. He was a security analyst working remotely for Campbell's. When he scheduled the meeting, he thought he would be discussing salary. Within minutes, he realized something was wrong. The tone, arrogance, the hostility. He instinctively pressed record. What he captured was not just rage, it was a window into a corporate culture spiraling out of control. Racist insults from a senior executive, mocking customers who rely on Campbell's affordable food, mocking co-workers, admitting he came to work high, saying openly that he avoids eating Campbell's food because of what is inside it. Garza kept the recording to himself for weeks. He tried to understand how something like this could happen at a company that tells the public it treats employees like family. Eventually, he decided he had a responsibility to report it. He went to his manager privately. He did not leak it to the media. He did not demand attention. He simply reported what he heard. 20 days later, he was fired. No follow-up, no investigation, no HR interview. Gone. It was retaliation disguised as procedure. A message sent to every employee inside Campbell's. Stay silent or pay the price. For a century-old company, this is how institutional rot shows itself. Not in a single scandal, not in one executive's rant. It shows in the way leadership responds when the truth tries to surface. Garza's firing was not just a human resources failure. It was a sign that Campbell's internal system is breaking down. The checks and balances inside the corporate structure no longer work. And when a company can no longer police its own leadership, collapse becomes inevitable. But the damage did not end with the whistleblower. Once the recording entered public view, consumers heard something they never expected from a global food company. They heard the phrase used by the vice president himself, "Slop for poor people." That single line destroyed more trust than any financial scandal ever could, because it revealed the quiet truth many customers fear, that some corporations view low-income families not as people, but as markets. Groups who will buy anything placed on a shelf because they have no other choice. When that mindset leaks out from a senior executive, it cuts deeper than a defective product or a bad financial quarter. Competitors saw the opportunity immediately. Analysts began quietly circulating the audio in industry groups. Marketing teams sharpened their messaging. Social media users began comparing ingredients. Suddenly, Campbell's was no longer the friendly supermarket brand. It became the symbol of everything consumers distrust about processed food. And that is where the larger conversation begins. The American food system has been drowning in scandal for years. Contaminated baby formula, unsafe production lines, processed meals filled with additives banned in other countries, high fructose corn syrup in nearly everything. The public hears about these incidents. Politicians argue about regulation, but little changes. And through it all, major corporations continue feeding the country. Products that raise eyebrows everywhere else in the world. So when a Campbell executive says he would never eat the food he sells, it hits a national nerve. Because many Americans already believe they are being fed low-quality food. They see other nations rejecting American meat. They see warnings about processed foods contributing to obesity, heart issues, and long-term health decline. They see the Food and Drug Administration carried by political pressure and corporate influence rather than consumer protection. They see a government that is supposed to defend the public, yet repeatedly bows to donors and lobbyists. Campbell's is not guilty of all these failures, but in the eyes of the public, they have become the symbol of it. A single leaked recording turned the company into the center of a much larger debate about food safety, corporate loyalty, and the value placed on ordinary customers. And now, with a CEO admitting financial collapse is approaching, the deeper question becomes impossible to ignore. Is Campbell's falling apart because the business is unstable, or because its leadership lost the moral compass required to keep a company alive? Sometimes a company dies because sales shrink. Sometimes it dies because it forgets why people ever trusted it in the first place. Campbell may be facing both at the exact same time. It is rare to see a Fortune 500 CEO step forward and quietly admit the company is going broke. Executives are trained to calm investors, steady the market, and promise brighter days ahead. But the situation inside Campbell Soup Company has deteriorated so severely that optimism is no longer believable. Between internal scandals, public outrage, and rapid financial decline, the company is now navigating a perfect storm that threatens its survival. The first blow came from the recording. The moment the public heard a senior vice president saying he would not eat Campbell's own food, sales began slipping. Analysts tracked the drop almost instantly. Online sentiment collapsed. Parents who relied on Campbell's for affordable meals started questioning every can in their kitchen. Some grocery chains began reducing shelf space for the brand, replacing it with private label options that were already outperforming Campbell in younger demographics. The second blow came from investors. No investor wants to be caught holding a company whose leadership openly mocks its own customers. Before the scandal, Campbell's stock was already struggling to appeal to younger buyers interested in fresh and healthy food. But after the recording, retirement funds quietly began pulling out. Hedge funds flagged Campbell as a declining asset. Risk models showed the company slipping toward dangerous territory. So subscribe, like, and comment why you like this video for a chance to win a new Apple MacBook. The third blow emerged from shifting consumer behavior. Younger shoppers do not respond well to corporate hypocrisy. They have already abandoned legacy, brands that fail to meet modern expectations. When a Campbell executive described the soup as slop for poor people, he did irreversible damage with the exact demographic the company needs for long-term survival. Internally, executives tried to contain the panic. Public statements called the comments inaccurate. They insisted the ingredients were high quality. They said the rant did not represent the company's values, but none of it mattered. The recording felt too real. The disgust in the executive's voice was unmistakable. Consumers believed him before they believed the scripted apology. And that is why the CEO finally broke the silence. He admitted the company is struggling. He admitted the finances are in trouble. What he did not say publicly, insiders already know. Campbell is facing a five-front crisis: a brand crisis, a leadership crisis, a legal crisis, a consumer trust crisis, and now a financial crisis that threatens to push the company past a point of no return. If a company as old as Campbell starts bleeding money, the shockwave does not stop inside the boardroom. It hits the national economy in ways most people never think about. Campbell operates factories across the country. If the company collapses, thousands of workers could face layoffs. Local economies built around these factories could crumble. Grocery stores that rely on stable partnerships will face shortages and price increases. A collapse of this size affects truck networks, packaging suppliers, agricultural partners, and distributors. And the lawsuits forming against Campbell will only accelerate the damage. Whistleblower retaliation, hostile work environment, racial discrimination, consumer deception, investor misrepresentation. Every lawsuit becomes evidence of deeper dysfunction. Every court filing becomes another blow to consumer trust. Lawyers across the country are already watching this case closely because they know more accusations are coming. Financial analysts are sounding alarms too. They point to Campbell's shrinking market share. They highlight the company's failure to attract younger households. They point to rising costs and slowing revenue. And now, with a nationwide scandal staining the brand, many analysts predict the company could face long-term devastation. A century-old household name is now balancing on the edge of collapse. The question that once seemed impossible has now become unavoidable. Could Campbell's actually collapse? The honest answer, according to bankruptcy experts, is yes. It is no longer an abstract scenario. It is a realistic possibility. When a company combines falling sales, executive scandals, shareholder panic, and legal exposure, the financial structure begins to buckle. Campbell's has already entered a dangerous cycle. Decline triggers fear. Fear triggers sell-offs. Sell-offs trigger more decline. Once a company enters that spiral, recovery becomes extremely difficult. Experts outline three possible futures. The first is a controlled restructuring. Campbell could attempt to sell divisions, close factories, or cut staff to slow the bleeding. This temporarily stabilizes the books, but destroys long-term growth. The second scenario is a forced acquisition. A foreign food conglomerate or private equity firm could buy the company, strip it for assets, and rebrand what remains. Many older American food companies have already been swallowed this way. The darkest scenario is liquidation. If lawsuits pile up, consumer trust collapses further, and sales continue falling, Campbell could enter a formal bankruptcy process. In this scenario, factories close, brands are sold off, and the company, as the world knows it, ceases to exist. Meanwhile, the public is reaching a breaking point. Consumers feel betrayed by the food industry. Prices keep rising, quality keeps dropping, scandals keep surfacing. People see contaminated baby formula. They see pesticide issues. They see processed food filled with chemicals banned in other countries. And now they hear a Campbell executive confirming what they feared. They are being fed food that executives refuse to eat themselves. That single recording has become a symbol of something much larger. It represents corporate America's decay. It represents leaders who mock the customers who keep them alive. It represents the failure of government regulators to protect consumers. It represents a political system that bends to donors instead of voters. Campbell did not start this frustration, but they have become the face of it. Politicians are already feeling the pressure. Voters want accountability. They want transparency in food production. They want inspections that actually protect families. They want corporations punished when they betray the public trust. What began as a leaked rant in a restaurant has quickly evolved into a national conversation about the safety and integrity of America's food supply. Campbell's once represented comfort, simplicity, home. For generations, the brand fed families across the country. But today, the company faces its darkest chapter. A leaked recording tore apart its image. A lawsuit exposed its internal culture. Customers walked away. Investors panicked. And now, the CEO himself admits the company is running out of time. The story of Campbell's downfall is not about competition. It is not about supply chains. The biggest threat was the truth leaking out. The truth about how leadership viewed the product. The truth about how they treated their employees. The truth about what people were actually being fed. And the most chilling question remains unanswered. What happens when the next recording surfaces? What happens when the next bombshell drops? Because the sense inside the industry is clear. Campbell is one scandal away from collapse,